I think that we accidentally started a little early.
Couple minutes late, but we are so excited to have everyone. Today we'll be sharing with you the results from an influencer survey that we Carusele conducted in partnership with TapInfluence. The survey, which had over 750 influencer respondents, shows us how to better understand the life of an influencer and how they view the industry today. And a quick note for those of you that might be generally new to the practice, the concept of an influencer is sort of generally or loosely defined as social users with over 10,000 followers. They're engaged by brands to help promote their products and services, but might not necessarily be famous in the way that we traditionally view celebrities. So today we're going to learn more about the results of this influencer survey and dive into the many tips that can help marketers improve their 2018 influencer marketing strategies. So let's hear what the influencers had to say. Oh, wait, actually, before we jump in, let's go through a few housekeeping items. So we'd love to hear from you as well. Feel free to ask questions anytime during the presentation. On the right side, you will find a questions column. So please, throughout the webinar, ask your questions. We'll be moderating throughout the session, both in the GoToWebinar panel as well as on Twitter. If you're using Twitter, be sure to mention @Carusele or @TapInfluence and the webinar hashtag #InfluencerWebinar. We'll spend about 15 or 20 minutes at the end addressing these, and if your questions are not answered today, someone will follow up with you after the webinar. And finally, the session is being recorded and will be sent to you following the presentation for your own purposes or to share with others. So who are you hearing from today? Over here on the left is myself, Amanda Fuquay from Carusele. I have been working within the realm of influencer marketing since probably before it was considered influencer marketing. I think we called them bloggers back then. Yes, so I've been with Carusele for almost 4 years now and spend my days learning about more about our clients and creating influencer and campaign strategies for them. I've spent a lot of time in the past meeting with influencers, learning more about their work, their interests, what they do and don't love about working with brands, and creating sponsored content, for the brands. And here with me, I would like to introduce Francesca Cruz, who is joining us from TapInfluence. Francesca oversees customer success at Tap. It's an influencer marketplace and SaaS technology that connects brands and creators. Francesca helps enterprise brands work with influencers to create high-impact influencer campaigns that are scalable and measurable. Francesca, would you like to say hi?
Yes, hi everyone. So excited to be here, and I think the results of this influencer survey are so interesting, so I'm excited to dive in.
Great. And next, we are so lucky to have some of our very own influencers joining us today. They are ready as well to share the scoop on influencer marketing from their side of the highway, if you will. We have Janise from Mama and Heels. Janise is based in Los Angeles and provides tips and cost-effective ways to help women look and feel their best without breaking the bank. Janise, would you like to say hi?
Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here as well.
Thank you. Thanks, Janise. Next, we have Brandi from Mama Knows It All, which is a parenting lifestyle influencer website for moms who are trying to have it all. Brandi was named top mom blogger a couple of years ago by Mom.me, and she's also the founder of Courage to Earn, which is a community of mostly female digital influencers who work together to build their businesses. And finally, we have Miss Amber from Amber Day Fitness. She is a health and fitness expert turned lifestyle and social media influencer based in Miami. And she offers advice on basically everything, but anything from workouts, fashion, nutrition, outdoor, and travel. Those are sort of her bread and butter. And she empowers her readers to live a balanced and healthy lifestyle. All right, well, now we can get started and learn what to be on the lookout for in your 2018 influencer marketing campaigns. So to kick it off, why are we all here today? I imagine you might be here to learn more about influencer marketing and how you can implement this tactic into your marketing plan in order to cut through communication noise and sort of build trust and credibility with a large audience across social. And you might be thinking and having these internal conversations with your team, you know, is influencer marketing worth it? And the whopping majority of marketers that have tried it, 92% say yes, it is. And for some brands, influencer marketing was a method that had seemingly come out of nowhere a few years ago, but is now considered to be an established and effective tactic. You know, these marketers have seen first or secondhand that social influencers increasingly have greater impact on consumer brand awareness and purchase considerations through their content and across their social channels. And on the topic of content, 51% of marketers say that influencer content outperformed their own brand created content. And, you know, we'll dive into this a little bit more later, but another trend we're seeing is that there's been a shift in trust, sort of a loosening of the reins from brands and an increased confidence in their influencers to highlight the product or the service in their own ways or voice in a way that the influencer sees fit for their audience while still fulfilling those brand guidelines. And once that trust is in place and creative freedom granted, you know, the content these influencers create is just unreal and incredibly engaging. And finally, you know, as just mentioned, we've seen the industry go from a rising marketing tactic to an essential part of most marketing budgets. Brands and marketers have really grasped how influencer marketing is helping their bottom line, and they're continuing to implement additional campaigns. So we're going to see more campaigns, larger budgets, as about 39% of marketers plan to increase their budget through 2018.
Great. And the other thing we're seeing, this is Fran, that influencer marketing has grown to be a multi-billion-dollar industry, meaning brands are paying influencers billions of dollars each year. In fact, Instagram alone did over $500 million in paid sponsorships last year and expects to do a little over $1 billion this year, just Instagram alone. And so as the industry is growing so massively and brands are working with influencers more and more, influencers are spending more time on work, there is some complications when it comes to misunderstandings that might exist between marketers and influencers. You know, it's incumbent upon companies like Carusele and TapInfluence to make sure that we break down the barriers and misunderstanding between brands and agencies and influencers, because with those misunderstandings come some poor practices in the industry and difficulties working together. And we see the best result in influencer campaigns when brands and influencers are aligning, creating long-term relationships, and there's a mutually beneficial synergy there. And so we conducted this survey to really keep a pulse on the industry. We surveyed 790 influencers, and to give you a sense of what the demographics were, they were between the ages of 25 and 44. 90% of those influencers were female and 10% were male. 75% were married and 60% had children. And we're going to go through now a series of 10 takeaways. I mean, the survey yielded so many great results, but there were 10 things that really stood out to us that we want you to be able to take home with you today and implement into practice and learning so that you can improve your own influencer practices. And one of the first statistics that popped up that was really glaring and really interesting is that blogs aren't going anywhere. When we surveyed 790 influencers about what their favorite channel was to use for branded content, 36% said blog, and that was the leading channel. And I think there has been probably some skepticism that blogs might not persist as some of these other social channels grew, but instead blogs remain the favorite, with Instagram being a very close second. And you know, this stood out to me not only because we at TapInfluence see about 60% of our campaigns include some blog component, but that almost 0% of our campaigns do not contain multiple platforms, meaning that brands will work with influencers to create content not on a single channel, but on multiple channels, to proliferate that content, to experiment with different mediums and different demographics, etc. So I thought I could open it up and ask the panel, you know, we have some great influencers on the line, Janise, Brandi, and Amber, about why they feel like their favorite platforms are what they are and why their blogs are still so important to them. Janise, do you want to start us off?
Sure. For me, it's a great way to meet new people. I have made several friends through my blog, and I feel that blogging is an act of giving because I will inspire others, and it is like a selfless act of service to invest my time, energy into a piece of writing and to offer it to anybody who wants to read it. And the blog provides a great platform to do that. The blog is also a great way to recommend something I found enjoyable and beneficial, whether it be a nice moisturizer, a great snack, or just a new outlook in life. And pretty much in a nutshell, for me, the blog provides a platform to share the joy. You know, I have experienced and recommend good things I have discovered to others, and just more of sharing. So I really do enjoy writing on my blog. Thanks, Fran.
Amber, what about you? You had some kind of interesting ideas about this when we were chatting the other day.
Just about, you know, the importance of the blog and why it's so crucial is I think it's just authenticity, right? But a lot of people look at the blog and think of it just as being one element, as just a blog post. Okay, how many people are going to go to that blog post? However, it's our brand. And if it's something that we're marketing, we're going to also market it ourselves to drive traffic to that blog. So, you know, we're also going to be marketing on your behalf. And I think there's a lot of elements that come into play as far as, you know, doing blog posts that I love personally. You know, one thing that she just said was creating a community. You know, I love helping people and sharing my knowledge. I started in the health and fitness industry, and so it just started by sharing the things that I know that people were asking about, and it kind of just evolved from there. It's also a great source of income, so it's a great way to streamline my income and allow me to spend more time on my content creation and be able to, you know, produce better content for the people that I'm doing campaigns with. But I really enjoy it because it's a creative outlet for me. So in a sense, it gives me a great creative outlet to do it the way I want under a brand's guidelines, but do it under my own authentic way as well.
Great. And thank you. You know, just for the sake of time, I'm going to let us go on to tip number 2, but Brandi, we're going to ping you for some feedback on these other things.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so results from the survey found that Instagram is the clear winner for engagement across all top social channels. Is anyone surprised by this? Instagram, you know, really has become the media darling of influencer marketing right now. The channel has all these features across the platform that are resonating with influencers. So they want to be there. They want to publish their content there. And, you know, and so in turn, the platform is resonating with their communities as well, their audiences. And with all these new features across this one platform, well, so Instagram was coming under fire recently because the media was asking, okay, we know you're great, but what makes you unique? You know, you're borrowing new features from the Facebook shelf. You're borrowing some from the competitive set Snapchat. You've got stories, you've got features. And so they're asking Instagram, you know, what is it? What makes you unique? And while it's true that they are harnessing what others have already created, Instagram is offering a platform where the full story can be seen all from one place. And its users, not even just influencers, users of Instagram for the most part and historically have used the platform to publish their highlight reel, only sharing a tiny set of all the content that's in their camera roll. But now with the stories feature, we can now follow the entire journey with them. You see, like, we don't just see the final cake that was made and we see it all set and perfect on the counter. We now get to see her excitement as she begins to bake. You know, the first cake she burnt, the cake she dropped on the floor, or the one the dog ate. We get to watch all that, and then we get the visual gratification of the artsy image with the final beautiful product on the counter. And that's actually what strengthens the relationship with her followers and brings us closer together. You know, because, you know, now I feel like I'm there. I know the whole story. And this is, you know, why those engagements are skyrocketing, and this is what is selling on Instagram. And Francesca actually has a great stat from her team regarding engagements on Instagram versus other social channels. Francesca, do you want to share that with us?
Yeah, so we just ran some benchmark data across all of the campaigns run in 2017, and we compared engagement rates, which we define as engagements over total reach, so the number of likes and comments and et cetera on Instagram. And what we found is engagement rates on Instagram are more often at least double the engagement rate of all the other platforms. Sometimes it's triple. And so this trend that influencers are seeing here, where they're seeing, individually, I'm getting the most engagement on Instagram, it's true. And we validated that across thousands of campaigns.
Absolutely. And Amber, you were telling us the other day about your Instagram channel and, why you prefer it. Do you want to share some insights that you have with everyone?
Yeah, absolutely. We all kind of have our favorite channels, of course, we like to use as a user, but, as a micro influencer, I definitely love to use Instagram. Instagram is great because of the engagement, but it's interesting when I look at across the board, my social media. If I look at my Facebook, I have my heavy following on Facebook, over around 600,000 on there. And I don't have near the amount on my Instagram because I did start that later. But the engagement is so much more higher on my Instagram that my conversion rate to all of the content that I provide and put out is actually higher on my Instagram than it is on my Facebook.
Great. And for the sake of time, we need to move on. But before we do, I do want to quickly call out that, yes, Instagram ranks highest for engagement, but other platforms serve a purpose, and each channel conveys sort of a different feeling for the users and the readers. So the channels you pick for your campaign should be based on what ROIs you expect. So, sometimes long-form blogs will make the most sense. Sometimes a heavy Facebook play will be best for you. We'll often recommend what channel is best for the audience that you're trying to reach, as well as your KPIs. But, most often, more often than not, we will work with multi-channel influencers across all social channels, again, just to build that story and have the readers see it from all different points of view in different places.
So before we accelerate into the next tip, I do want to say I think there's going to be a lot of conversation on this topic. It's become a really hot one, which is that influencers need to be compensated fairly. When we surveyed our influencers, more than half of them said the biggest challenge working with brands is low compensation. And, I'm fortunate because I get to sit at the intersection of brands and influencers. And so I get to see both sides of the creative process. And I'm always surprised when brands still come to me and say, we don't believe in paying our influencers because, we feel like we're buying their authenticity, we're buying their loyalty. And that's just really not the case. I mean, what we are buying is many hours of time and energy being put into creating really high quality content. And we'll talk a little later about how much time influencers are spending on this. But, for many of our influencers, this is a part to full-time gig. And so when they're creating content, and I was chatting with one of our influencers who works at TAP the other day about how much they put into a single piece of content. And I'm also seeing brands repurposing that content quite a bit today. And so that high quality, the time it takes to put that post together is important for them because they're going to be putting that elsewhere on their own channels, for example. Brandi, I would love to hear, how you feel about this point and some of the challenges you've faced personally here.
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing for brands to understand is that the time spent, regardless of audience, the time spent creating high quality content is the same, no matter how many followers someone has, no matter how many page views, and that if they are creative, they could take that content and really make it work for them. So if you have a very micro influencer who takes their own pictures, who creates recipes from scratch, who has adorable kids, who has a really close-knit, engaged community, you can definitely benefit greatly from hiring them, as opposed to just looking at bloggers with high numbers who may not be putting as much energy and effort into creating the content. But definitely free product doesn't work because, you know, as everybody always says, product doesn't pay the bills. And, you know, influencers that I know, influencers that are in my community are professionals. You know, they have platforms that they have to pay for. So people are using tools like Hootsuite to schedule and to get more eyes on their content. They're paying for SEO services. They're buying, you know, nice DSLR cameras and lights and things like that to improve the quality of their content. So just remembering that bloggers and influencers, they're running businesses just like, you know, just like the brands are.
Great point. I mean, Amber, Janise, do you have anything you want to add to this point?
Yeah, I mean, she hit it head on. You know, I always say if you would pay a marketing company, why wouldn't you pay an influencer? You know, the product is a given because we actually need the product, whether we even wanted it or not, just to create our content. So it's definitely an aspect that you need to look at when you're looking for influencers. But we do juggle multiple jobs and multiple positions, and I think most people don't realize a lot of the techniques that go into play when we are producing content. It can take several hours, including, you know, whether it's going to locations and shooting and doing different things for that brand to create that content.
I actually have a brand customer that does really elaborate DIY work. And so the influencers who do work for that brand end up taking many, many hours just to create the product that's featured in the post. So it is important to note that different types of assignments require different levels of effort. And to Brandi's point earlier, regardless of your reach, you know, that those hours are going to need to be spent, and it's a benefit to the brand when those hours are put in. So I'm going to accelerate to the next slide here and turn it over to Amanda again for tip number 4.
Tip number 4, yes, this one is a big one for us. Balance direction with creative freedom. A common misconception about influencer marketing is that it being the content has to look a certain way. For instance, an influencer taking a photo holding your product with, you know, with a generic caption about how much they love your brand, that gets very boring very fast. And in 2018, your influencer marketing campaign should look a lot less like generic ads and much more like content marketing. So, you know, as with anything in life, it's all about balance. And our survey found that influencers struggle with both a lack of creative freedom, but also a lack of clear guidelines, you know, in creating that content and what it should look like. So when working on the direction of your influencer campaign, really take some time to think about what you want to accomplish with influencer marketing. Great content entertains, it educates, it invokes some level of emotion from your audience. But for whatever reason, brands tend to lose sight of that when working with influencers. So think about what story do you want to tell? How do you want to, you know, convey your message creatively? And what benefit does your audience get from the content that you're going to produce with the influencer? And then once you figure that out, share it with your influencer. Our team has struck a really great balance with the kickoff document that we call a welcome packet. And it's the perfect vehicle for a structured ask that's not overbearing or over curated, which leads to a lack of authenticity. We include a mantra that covers our goal of the campaign and gives the influencer a feel of the tone and the message of the campaign. We share objectives, specific key messages, any and all brand watch outs. And what we mean by that is that can be as little as, you know, the product name must always be capitalized throughout every time it's mentioned in your content and copy. So as small as that, or as big as, you know, under any circumstances, do not feature this product alongside a puppy, in your image. Do not associate our brand with puppies. And, you know, we hand this over to the influencer before they get started. and they can think about what their copy is going to look like and sound like, what their images are going to look like, and sort of the aesthetic that you're looking for. So I'll give the influencers a chance to chime in. I know that sometimes they feel that brands sway too far in either direction, and whether that be, too much creative freedom, or too much direction. And, it's led them to turn down assignments in some instances. So, Janise, do you want to get us started with that?
Sure. I just want to say that I love working with Carusele and TapInfluence. They are, I think they are really good at, just structuring what the brand is looking for, but not too structured. It allows a lot of creative freedom for us. And I love the welcome packet. It's really articulate. And when I receive this packet and I know what I need to produce for this campaign, it's really easy for me to follow. And so that gives me a lot of creative freedom to do what I need to do to convey my message in terms of what the brand's looking for and what kind of message I want to convey out there.
Exactly. Thank you, Janise. Yeah, it feels, oftentimes we work with Janise quite a bit, and a lot of times it feels very much like a collaboration. We'll brainstorm with Janise. We'll hand over the welcome packet, kind of get her creative juices flowing, and then we'll spend some time brainstorming about what her content will look like, and the angle, the story angle that she will take, so that it hits all those the key messages, the brand guidelines, but also is going to resonate with her readers. So thank you for that. And just keeping an eye on time, we can go ahead and hop to the next slide.
Perfect. So, when we look at the distribution of the influencers that we surveyed, only 5% of them had more than 800,000 in total reach, while 60% fell into the $10,000 to $150,000 range. I think this is a really important point. And, Amanda and I have the luxury of having been in this business for some time, but we still find, brands really gravitating toward vanity metrics like reach. And what we're finding is that this year, especially in 2018, is the time for the power middle and the micro influencer. More brands now are getting hip to the fact that they're getting better engagement and more authentic content creation and authentic dialogue with consumers with influencers in this follower range. And to Brandi's point earlier, they're creating really high quality content at a really cost-efficient price point. And so not only is the cost per content, really beneficial for the brand relative to what they might pay a creative agency, for example, and they can then repurpose that content, but also there's just this, the shift towards social selling where we're trying to engage consumers where they are in an authentic way. It's not happening at the celebrity level. And actually, Carusele and TapInfluence, we don't specialize in celebrity sponsorship. It certainly has its place. But when it comes to, the authentic conversations and engagement, when you're working with a Kim Kardashian, she's typically not, replying back in the Instagram post, for example. Whereas, somebody like Brandi might, have a complete dialogue. And you heard all of these influencers on this panel say that they love their blog because it's their community, right? They've cultivated that community and grown it, and they do have a genuine personal relationship. And that relationship is important for the brand message. Amber, what are your thoughts on this point?
Yeah, one of the big things is the micro influencers are really engaging the audience, just like you said, right? Most of the time, you're not going to get the Kim Kardashians responding to the audience, and that is really huge for people who are making purchases, right? So I like to think of it more as referral-based marketing instead of social marketing. If I follow my friends and they're using this and they like it, they're referring it to me, and I trust them. So it's that trust and close relationship with the audience is just crucial for purchasing decisions. And I think that's why the conversion rate and the campaigns done with micro influencers is so much better when we look at the analytics in comparison to some of the influencers that have that large amount of following. Going back to my statement earlier, I have a huge following on my Facebook, but I have far, far less on my Instagram, and my engagement on my Instagram really blows away my Facebook. So, you know, it's not necessarily those numbers, but it is also the engagement as well.
I think it's also important for, this is Brandi, I think it's important also for brands to think about micro influencers as planting seeds. I did a sponsored campaign 3 years ago that on my blog consistently gets almost 5,000 page views a month, even still. So while you may not have those huge numbers of likes, you know, 100,000 likes and things like that, there are still people who are searching, who are looking, who are going to find that content. One suggestion that I have for brands is to just look at the comments. If you're seeing a lot of emojis, a lot of that looks nice, then you can probably guess that while someone has these high numbers, that they're not getting the type of engagement that you really want, you know, real authentic engagement that you want your client to receive.
That's really great, and I think all really valid feedback. I'm going to accelerate to tip number 6. One of my favorites, most interesting, I think.
Yes. 0% of influencer respondents took Snapchat as their favorite platform. You know, I'll go ahead and expand on this and say that while Snapchat is not an influencer's favorite platform, it also doesn't appear to be a marketer's top interest right now either. We used to get inquiries specific to Snapchat in almost every RFP, but you know, seemingly one day, no one mentioned it anymore. And Francesca was telling us the other day that she's seeing that at TapInfluence as well. She was telling us that Snapchat was a much bigger focus for her about 18 months ago. But, you know,
Right.
since then, there's been a sharp decline in interest, from both brands and influencers. And so, you know, it is really interesting, you know, as we've seen influencers posting habits sort of increase across Instagram, they're simultaneously moving away from Snapchat. And we have several theories as to why this is. We hear from influencers that the demographic is limited. You know, maybe their audience is older and the Snapchat user typically skews much younger, Gen Z to younger millennials. Or that it's hard to maintain multiple channels. So when Instagram created stories, many influencers went over to Instagram and started posting their 24-hour stories there so that it could tie directly to their curated Instagram posts that we talked about earlier. And influencers who earn a living from social media sponsorship, they're going to post on the platforms which give them the best opportunities for visibility and engagement. You know, they want to extend their reach and audience, and audiences in turn will go to the platforms that have the best available content. So right now it's a bit of a catch-22 for Snapchat. And, you know, the same underlying principle is what we think is deterring marketers as well. We hear from marketers that less data is accessible via Snap, so they're migrating their focus and dollars toward channels where they can get more feedback and tie back to their business's KPIs. So, so we're going to keep an eye on this platform. You know, we do hear that Snapchat is making attempts to regain some ground with brand marketers and influencers. So, yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on this through 2018 and see where it goes. Do any of the panelists who are creating content, you know, where are you putting it? Are you putting it in Snap, or any insight into that? No? Snapchat's kind of quiet for everyone right now. That's fair. Okay, well, 0%. It's very interesting, and you know, as we said, we'll keep an eye on this and see where it goes. Maybe we'll do a full webinar around Snapchat and its advances later in 2018.
We'll certainly see what they do in 2018, you know, having committed that they're going to be investing more in creators, and, you know, having their API that's not open certainly presents a challenge to, you know, marketers trying to measure. So, you know, I can see where this is coming from, but I think they've identified this and they'll be working on it. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Snapchat coming back into the conversation more heavily in the future.
Yep.
So if you're a brand and you are reaching out to influencers that you don't necessarily know, who may not already be advocates for your brand, but you'd love to create a partnership with them. What do you need to know? Well, influencers will work with brands that they don't know, but what is important is that 85% of them require that it's going to be good for their audience, that is going to have a strong affinity with their own brand, and that they are going to be able to believe in it and stand behind it. And I think this is just the most important statistic because, number one, it indicates that influencer marketing truly is a self-regulating industry. Influencers are not going to be promoting brands that they don't believe in, and when they do, they lose followers and they lose trust. And so it does sort of weed itself out. And that being said, it's really important for brands when they reach out to influencers to do their homework, right? Look at their past content, look at the messaging, look at the aesthetic, and make sure that it really does align. I mean, we were chatting with some of the panelists the other day, and they were saying that they get outreach from all of these different brands that are completely erroneous, that they would never identify with, and that should be relatively obvious. But if there is something that really aligns with who they are, they're certainly willing to give it a shot and give their honest feedback on that thing and create content that is, high quality. Brandi, do you have any particular thoughts on this point?
Yes, I love working with new brands. As a mom, I think about it like going into the store and finding a new product on an end cap and saying, oh, this looks cool. So I'm totally fine with working with new products as long as it fits in with what I believe, so products that are good for my family, that are good for me, that are affordable. And I think that that's one of the things that I see sometimes with brands, that they want to know that you've already tried the product, but most people don't try everything before they try it, if that makes sense.
That's right. And Janise, do you have any thoughts on this point? I think we have a situation of muting going on. In that case, I think I will accelerate to tip number 8.
Tip number 8, this is a big one for us and probably one of the biggest trends you can expect for influencer marketing in 2018, which is a pretty bold statement to make. But for influencer marketing in 2018, we're going to be seeing brands and influencers being much more transparent about their partnerships. In the early days of influencer marketing across social media, not everyone, including both the brand or the influencer, was as open as they should have been about working together to create sponsored posts. And so, so basically a lot of influencers created Instagram posts, YouTube videos, other content promoting products without disclosing if they were being paid for it. And as you can imagine, that's a big no-no in advertising. So the FTC put their foot down last year and clarified what brands and influencers need to be doing when working together on that sponsored content. And, as we can see from the results, this has definitely gotten better, than it was about 18 months ago. Over 57% of our influencers surveyed say that the brand they work with are holding them to FTC guidelines. So it seems the awareness around the importance is rising. But general rule of thumb is if you want to avoid facing any type of legal troubles, just make sure the influencers you work with clearly disclose that they're being compensated for promoting your brand. It really is as simple as putting #ad or #sponsored in their post. It doesn't have to be gaudy, and it's pretty well received by the community. So, just ensure it's in there. And, for the influencers themselves, I know we have some in the audience, even if a brand is not requiring the disclosure, you should take the responsibility for this, in your own content. It's been found that the FTC will not just go after brands for the discrepancy, but also the influencers themselves as well. And, Amber was telling us the other day that, there really are some great authentic ways to call out the partnership in your copy. Amber, do you want to tell us how you'll sort of authentically weave in the FTC guidelines?
I do it different ways, but I let them know that I work with this brand, and although I work with them, all of the opinions are authentically my own opinions. And so they know that, this is sponsored content on behalf of that brand, but all of the opinions in this blog post are authentically mine. And it's a small statement that I put at the bottom. I think it really, solidifies my brand for the long run, especially in the whole digital era of where we're going in influencers. I think it's going to be get cracked down on more and more as we go down this road. So it's something we need to keep up with. And I think being honest and authentic with our followers is really what helps us engage them even more.
Absolutely. And, Instagram has made the process even easier with its, branded content option, as well as Facebook with the handshake tool. So, the platforms are catching on and making this really easy for the influencers to do themselves. So we'll be seeing this, again, a lot in 2018, but just keep it top of mind whenever you're publishing any content.
Great points, Amanda. I mean, I'll accelerate to this next slide and let you just look at it and draw your own conclusions. I'd say the stat is pretty definitive, which is how long do you currently plan to continue working as an influencer? And 97% of the influencers said as long as they are able. And I think this is important for a couple of reasons. One is that it takes time to build a brand and an audience. It's not something you do overnight, and it's not a short-term strategy. And I think that's one of the reasons that influencers have this feeling, is because, this really is a long-term play for them. This is something they've cultivated and they care about. So what does this mean for the industry then? It means it's a great opportunity for brands to create ongoing ambassadorships. It's also a great opportunity to create evergreen content. We just had the Super Bowl, and again, I was seeing content from 2014, 2015 come back around the Super Bowl when people were looking for recipes or inspirations for party ideas, or what to do that's family friendly during the Super Bowl, and those things continue to come back up. So what was, once a blog post in 2014, perhaps forgotten about by the brand, still paying dividends for that brand. So I think this is a really important point for the matter of evergreen content and continuing to see results in a way that you don't see with other forms of digital. Amber, do you have any thoughts on this point?
I think one of the big things is, establishing a relationship with the brand and the influencer. So, not doing a one-off campaign, because a lot of the time, you're going to be able to get better results by kind of continuing with that influencer, so they can continuing putting in that content out for their audience. So then they know it's not, okay, this one time that I'm recommending it, I'm kind of continuing to talk about this here and there over this quarter, this first quarter and the second quarter. And so it really starts to resonate with them. So establishing relationship with influencers, they'll continue to push your content and your blog posts and your campaigns, not only during that time of the campaign, but like you said, it's evergreen. So sometimes we have tons of content, but we need to get some new content. We'll go back to our previous content and maybe share that throughout our social media again, and that drives more to your brand. So we are always in it for the long haul, and that's what I hear amongst all the influencers that I know and know personally.
Amanda, at Carusele, are you seeing much in the way of this trend the same way we have?
Oh, absolutely. And, what we're seeing as well is that more influencers are becoming more and more dedicated to it. It's becoming a full-time job for them. They're spending a lot more time creating their content. And especially as these influencers are becoming ambassadors and they're working on long-term programs and working with the same brands over and over and over again, they have become these, real organic, if you will, ambassadors for the brand. And I don't think this is something that brands are going to want to give up, since they spent so much time and, and dedication to these influencers.
Exactly. All right. Are we ready for our last but not least tip number 10?
Yes, our last tip, number 10. So we found that through the survey, influencers juggle many sources of work. And I'm going to let the influencers speak to this point and tell us what all they have going on. But, from my perspective, we've been using the phrase influencer marketing campaign quite a bit today. However, instead of looking at them as campaigns, think of each connection you make with an influencer as a relationship. In order to get the most from influencer marketing, focus on building long-term relationships, what we were just talking about, with each of these influencers that you work with. I think in 2018, the brands that see success with influencer marketing are going to be the ones that treat influencers as partners, collaborative partners, rather than a means to an end and just like someone that creates an ad for them. When influencers feel you've invested in them and genuinely care, I think they're going to be more loyal to you and your brand and are going to promote you with more enthusiasm. So, back to the survey result, when influencers have 3 to 4 campaigns going on at one time, dozens of points of contact, maybe not a dozen, but several at any given time, and hundreds of inquiries in their inbox, they're going to give their focus to you because, you've treated them with respect, you've worked with them before, and they genuinely love and enjoy your product. So, I am going to turn this over to, we haven't heard from Janise in a while. Janise, do you want to talk about, what all you have going on and kind of what you're juggling day to day?
Sure. I'm a full-time working mom. I also have 6-year-old twin boys. And in addition to that, I'm maintaining a blog. And so I juggle a lot as a wife, a mom, and a career woman. So I just wanted to add that with most of the campaigns that I have worked on, I continue to use their products, even, after the end of the campaign, life expectancy, as I call it, but to me, it continues on. And I share those with my readers and my friends and family. So it's, for me, it's in it for the long haul. And we juggle a lot. And for me, I love it. It keeps me going. It keeps me busy. And I think that's for me, that's part of life.
Absolutely. Thank you, Janise. And Amber, I think you were telling us the other day that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you were telling us that you turn down 80 to 85% of the inquiries that you get to partner. Why is that? Is it because you have, just too much going on? Is it because you don't feel that these brands are a fit for you? Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, I mean, a good chunk of it is maybe because it's not a fit for me, and so it just wouldn't look authentic because it's not a fit for my brand. But a lot of it comes into play with how much we're really doing for just a specific blog post, and we're juggling so many different things, right? So you got your photography, you're an author, you're managing the operations of putting together the posts, you're spreading the social content. So there's so many things that go into play when it's just working on a campaign. And I think it's funny when a lot of them think that, oh, I can just send you a quick email and maybe you'll do this for free if I send you this. And it doesn't work that way anymore. I really like to use a platform that is kind of the middleman for me, because I know it's real brands. I know a lot of the stuff is going to be managed for me, so I don't have to go back and forth multiple different emails to find out the specific content, the specific hashtags, the dates, and all of this stuff. It's done for me through something like TapInfluence. So generally, I work with the brands that find me through these platforms instead of the brands who just reach out to me on an individual basis, just because the ease of use. But I do turn down a good chunk of them, and I would say the percentage is at least around 80 to 85%, just because it definitely puts more time on my plate because they're not using a platform like TapInfluence or Carousel.
Great. That is great to know. If any of the other influencers want to chime in, that would be great. Otherwise, we will go straight into questions. All right. Well, yeah, we've gotten some great questions in. Thank you so much. We're going to try to answer as many of these as we can before our 8 minutes is up. I'm going to start with one of the more generic ones and have each of our panelists touch on it. How did you become an influencer? Can you tell us about, why you started blogging and maybe the first brand you worked with and what that looked like? And let's start with Janise.
Sure. Well, I started to blog. When did I start a blog? It's been a few years ago, and I started blogging because I wanted to log, I guess, my day-to-day life, my more of my everyday lifestyle, and sort of like a journal, but just in a digital format. And from there, it's just evolved into this blog, this brand, and I'm still me, who I am, so that hasn't changed.
Awesome. Thank you, Janise. And Amber, what about you? How did you get started?
It really kind of just happened really naturally. I, was a competitor in the fitness and health industry. And so I always would have people following me or commenting and asking me about my diet and my training and wanting more information. And I felt like I was going back and forth, kind of saying some of the same stuff to people over and over again. So I wanted a place that I can just put out some of my knowledge and just refer them to a source of, hey, find it here, check it out here. So it started with that, and it definitely evolved over time. Of course, I evolved, and so did my blog evolved. I'm not so dived into the competitor world, and it's more of a lifestyle business fitness website that covers a little bit of everything. And at this point, it's been great because brands do reach out to me consistently, but it wasn't always like that, and it didn't start by working with brands. And that's why I think I love doing it so much, because it didn't start by wanting to even become an influencer. It really genuinely came from me wanting to give back.
Awesome. Thank you. And Brandi, do you want to touch on this before we move to the next question?
Yes, so I've been blogging, it'll be 8 years in May, and I started just to tell my stories of being a single mom at the time. I quickly determined, learned that I could make money from it. And as a single mom, I was looking for anything that I could to be able to take care of my daughter. So I was very fortunate that some of my first campaigns came from influencer networks way back then in the beginning. Since then, I've worked with hundreds of brands. I really just love doing it. It forces me to be creative in new and different ways. And I find that my audience really trusts me. And a lot of people are online reading stories, but a lot of people are actually online just looking for things to buy.
Right. And I love that you said your audience trusts you and that you are thinking of new creative ways to showcase the content, to create and then showcase the content. Again, it sounds like you're getting that creative freedom that's resonating with your audience. So keep up the good work. And for our first question, our second question, it's becoming more and more apparent in the blogging community that live video is crucial to working with brands in 2018. In what ways are marketers leveraging live video on the various platforms? I know that team, we do live videos on Instagram, we do it on Facebook, depending on who our audience is and what the content looks like. But what types of live videos are you guys working on, and how are they coming to life? Anyone can go. I'm not going to call on you guys except for this one. Do y'all have any?
Yeah, I haven't
live videos.
Yeah, I haven't personally dived into the video realm. I actually want to do some other creative content as far as outdoors and hiking and stuff, some travel content. But I haven't dived into actually vlogging. I haven't had too many brands want to reach out to me in that aspect of wanting to do that. But I'm always open to it. I know video is huge, and it's definitely that will be implemented in the blog pretty soon. So.
And
the other night, oh, go ahead.
Oh, this is Brandi. I am all for live video. I do them very frequently, especially on Facebook, on both Mama Knows It All and my Courage to Earn pages. I just really enjoy having that instant feedback from folks, being able to have a conversation with my audience and with my friends and followers. So live video is a huge part of my content creation plan. also, it's kind of something that I do for brands, kind of as almost like a freebie sometimes. You know, if it's a product that I can showcase in a way that's better via video, then I just go live. I don't have to worry about editing it, and the brand appreciates it at the end too.
Absolutely. And again, it goes back to Instagram. You can do your Facebook Live really on either channel, Facebook or Instagram, and then, you know, post a photo of it afterward, and, you know, keep the conversation going. I was working late the other night, and I just, one of the influencers that we work with was doing a live Instagram on, it was in partnership with a chicken broth, believe it or not, but she was creating a recipe with the chicken broth, and it was her grandmother's like favorite tortilla soup. And she took us through like setting up for the recipe and creating it. And I just, you know, put the kickstand up on my phone and tuned in while I was working. And it was so fun. And it was her first live video she had ever done. And she was getting such great comments and feedback. And they were saying, you know, her audience was saying, next time share this, and, you know, let's do this next time. So it was super engaging and really gave her, you know, a lot of great ideas for her next one. So it sounds like she'll be doing a mix of both sponsored and organic live videos moving forward, which seems pretty cool. So we have about 2 minutes left. So we'll move on to the next question. It is also a recipe question and video. So Facebook is super engaging for recipe video content, or do we think Instagram stories is a stronger channel for this type of content as well? What do you guys think about that?
This is Fran at TapInfluence. I actually, you know, I've been examining this, and Instagram stories is a little bit newer than Facebook video for food, you know, walking through how to make something, for example. We've seen Facebook food video, especially that tasty style video that's pretty quick and easy to consume, as being one of the top performing mediums in the TapInfluence platform in 2017. Instagram stories are nice. They can give you a walkthrough, but I have not seen the level of engagement there quite as simply. However, the same kind of rules around promoting those posts can be applied, right? So you can take, for example, a Facebook video that's really top performing, and the brand can then amplify it using a Facebook ad, which I think sort of contributes to some of the really great results that we've seen. So right now, I've seen Facebook video, especially because it's, you know, it's pretty highly curated, as being the winner there, but I don't know that that will always be the case.
Awesome. That is great feedback. Well, that takes us to right at 12 p.m. or 3 p.m. East Coast time. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and thank you for your time today. I want to give a special thank you to our panelists. We so appreciate you being here. And the recording
Definitely.
of the webinar will be sent out before end of business day today, and we'll also be sharing an original infographic summarizing the survey findings. So again, thank you all so much, and we look forward to chatting next time.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.